Last summer, Chicago saw massive protests after the killing of George Floyd, including some with violence, property damage, and theft. Chicago police, city officials, and local businesses have been preparing for the verdict in the trial of former officer Derek Chauvin, with the mayor saying police were ready to ensure the right to peaceful protest and to stop any criminal activity. Amanda Vinicky joins us now from Daley Plaza. Amanda, what do you see out there?
Well, Paris, right now I'm pretty much alone at Daley Plaza. Even the once plentiful pigeons appear to have flown away and left. But up until about an hour ago, there was an event taking place just behind me with people carrying posters saying things like "Jail Killer Cops Now" and "Stop Cop Terror." Also briefly chanting "Justice for George Floyd." That was, by the way, briefly drowned out by the sound of helicopters overhead. It was a fairly small turnout and a couple of dozen participants, with one demonstrator calling it both a protest and a celebration.
Derek Chauvin would not have been found guilty if not for the mass protests that have occurred throughout the year. If not for the mass mobilizations and people taking the streets, we would not see any semblance of justice. And so that's why it's important for all of us to be out here in the streets, to being organized, because they won't actually create that sense of justice without a demand.
And more demands, more mobilizations on the way, she expects, including hoping for turnout in some capacity tomorrow. That's when the Chicago City Council will meet in person for the first time, as activists who are present at this event tonight are pressing for Chicago aldermen to adopt an ordinance giving civilians oversight of the Chicago Police Department. Now, Mayor Lori Lightfoot had been prepared for much more demonstrations on a much more massive scale, something along the lines of what Chicago saw last year when there were some peaceful protests, but also a lot of looting. She wasn't the only one preparing for this. Driving around downtown, saw some buildings boarded up. Some may also be because of COVID vacancies, but I'm across the way see a bank that right now appears to be embracing the calm, expecting no other major activity anytime soon. They are taking down plywood that one can only imagine was just put up for the reason of waiting this verdict. Now, also at the mayor's request, Governor J.B. Pritzker had sent 125 National Guard members to be in Chicago on standby, and the mayor had said that CPD officers were given refresher course trainings on First Amendment rights and that they'd otherwise been preparing for demonstrations.
Don't test us. Don't test us. Hold on one second, let me just finish. We are ready, we are prepared, and we are ready to arrest and bring to prosecution anyone who would dare try to take the dreams of our small businesses by looting. Don't test us, because we are ready.
Now, some aldermen and some activists did take umbrage with that remark. Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa saying that the National Guard cannot bring peace, only justice can bring peace. Since the verdict, Mayor Lightfoot releasing a statement praising the Chauvin decision. Today marks a moment where future generations can look back and see that we as a nation came together and rightfully demanded justice and accountability. And justice was served. Governor J.B. Pritzker also reacting to the decision, saying, "My heart goes out to the family of George Floyd who deserved to have him alive today. I'm also thinking of all our Black communities and other communities of color who say their children or their parents or themselves in George Floyd and Dante Wright and Adam Toledo and Breonna Taylor and Laquan McDonald." Now, all of those names have been hallmarks of protests in Chicago. George Floyd, especially, his name last year, his face everywhere during massive demonstrations, as were some of his final words: "I can't breathe." Now, others here echoing what Maya again had said earlier, that conviction today of Derek Chauvin would not have happened were it not for the widespread backlash against police brutality. Now, another hallmark of those large-scale protests, calls for change. George Floyd's murder was a flashpoint in Illinois and in Chicago, leading to a handful of new laws that were backed by black legislators, and most prominently, that includes a massive criminal justice bill that is now law. You had, of course, the Chauvin trial relying heavily on both video from bystanders, but also from the body cameras of police themselves. This new Illinois law requires all law enforcement in the state of Illinois to have and to use body cameras by the year 2025. Also includes provisions such as requiring that deaths in police custody be reported and tracked, use of force training, and it does also set protocols for crowd control and more. So activists at tonight's gathering say, yes, this is all a start, claiming victory with the thrice guilty verdict now facing Derek Chauvin. But they also say again that they want more accountability, pointing out their frustrations, their anger with Adam Toledo, the death of Adam Toledo, the 13-year-old, at the hands of a Chicago police officer, even as the Chauvin trial was taking place. Paris, back to you.
And Amanda, we're going to talk to Alderman in just a bit about some of those police reform proposals and that meeting tomorrow in person. It'll be watched closely. All right, thanks very much.